Hi guys, Jordan from B&B Campers. Just going to be doing a handover video on this Hymer B588. It's a 2015, just double check that, late 2015. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you around the outside all the way around and then I'll jump inside and show you what we've got going on in there. So under the bonnet here we can see we've got the original chassis plate just here, so you can see that it is weighted at 4.5 ton. So these A-class vehicles are a little bit tricky to get to all the bits and pieces. You can still get to the oil nice and easily, and actually having this kind of drop down bonnet is a lot nicer than the normal sort of tilt up ones you have to lean underneath. Anyway, so over on the left hand side up there we have got the power steering fluid, engine coolant. Your washer fluid reservoir is this one just here, so that's where you would top that up from. We've got your engine oil and engine oil dipstick from here. Over on the right we've got your air filter inside this box just here. Brake fluid attached to this servo just up here, and it's on this side because it's a left-hand drive vehicle. The engine battery sits under the floor in the cab, so you do have to make sure that if you wanted to jump start the vehicle, you've got a little positive terminal underneath this little cover here, and a negative terminal, which is normally around here somewhere, which will be somewhere easy to get. So the actual original negative terminal is this little prong just here. So if you were going to jump start the vehicle, you can do it from there, or there probably will be another easy earth to get onto around here somewhere, but there you go. So that's about it really for under the bonnet. There's not really much else to show you on that. This is the premium line vehicle by Hymer, and yeah, so it's a very, very nice vehicle throughout. You can see the bodywork here, really nice and straight, nice and shiny. We haven't had to do any polishing on this vehicle whatsoever. It was literally just a case of give it a wash off when we got it in, and it was absolutely lovely already, so that's a real plus. When you open up this door here, the step does come out to allow you access to the inside of the van on the front near side. As I say, it is a left-hand drive and it's on the automatic as well. The bonnet release handle is just here inside this driver's door on the near side. And then on the little bit of dash just here, we've got the, this is kind of like your joystick here to adjust your wing mirrors. So if you wanted to choose which mirror you want to move by going left or right, and then move this around like a little joystick, that'll then give you access to moving them around. Heated mirrors as well, so you can turn them on from there, and you've got your step. So that is the step on the off side, the actual main habitation door step. So if you wanted to bring that in before you start driving and it doesn't do it automatically, you can press that button just there. Now it should bring the step in by itself when you start the engine up, but just in case it doesn't, you've got the option of doing it there. Right, so this vehicle does have the Audi central heating, so you have got little sort of metal grates all the way around the vehicle, which is basically little access holes to your radiators. So the Audi heating literally works like a household heating system, where it kind of heats up radiators around the vehicle and it pumps hot water around rather than blown air. So I'll run through that when we get through to it in a minute, but I just thought I'd point that out to you just there. In the cab itself, you've got, well, pretty much as high a spec as you can get really. So down here in the actual cab itself, you've got your indicators and lights on the top stalk just here. Your cruise control and limiter just here in the stalk underneath. Front and rear fog lamps and your headlight adjustments from here. Obviously you got your washers and wipers on the right hand side there. This little switch just here will turn your radio on if you wanted it to be on. The automatic is very, very straightforward. You've literally got over and up to the top right hand side for neutral, straight down for reverse, or into the middle and over to the left for drive. You do have the option of using the manual mode on this, so when you're in drive, push once to the left and you'll realise that your little A on the dash there will disappear, and that means that you'll be able to basically go through the gears like this, like a Tiptronic is what they call it. over up to the top right for neutral again. And because this hasn't got a park function on here on the actual gear stick, you do have to make sure that you use the handbrake every time you come to a stop, or every time you want to stop the vehicle and get out of the vehicle, basically, because putting it in neutral will not stop you from moving. So you need to make sure that you use the handbrake when you put it in neutral. Over towards the right, we've got this nice modern head unit. All of your heater controls are from this one here. So you've got your air conditioning switch over here on the right. You've got your hazard warning lights, downhill ascent, assist, USB point, and a 12-volt socket there as well. Only other thing that I need to run you through just briefly is this little button just here. So because you've got the automatic, they do always have this little button here, which I believe, since I've sort of found out more recently, this button here is basically if you're going uphill and you need to have slightly higher ratio gears, so you know the gearbox doesn't try and change you up the gears too soon if you're going up a steep hill. If you press that button there, it should hold you in the gear for a little bit longer so that you don't start running out of power when you're going up the hills. So that's the idea behind that switch just there. Okay, so what I will do is just show you that you've got your diesel filling point just here. So diesel filling point comes out really nice and easily just from there. You might need your ignition key to get that open up, but that's nice and straightforward. That is normally where they are. Inside here you can see that you've got access to the inside of the van just here nice and easily as well. But this is a really important locker. So in this locker itself, you've got your power supply unit, which is this blue box over here on the right. This is an Electroblock EBL30. On the left here, we've got various other bits that are all to do with the Electroblock as well. So this, everything that's like this sort of color, the blue color, is all to do with your power supply. Above it, we've obviously got your twin ledger batteries as well, which are working really nicely at the moment. Nothing wrong with those whatsoever. A couple of fuses and bits and pieces up the front here, but the main fuse panel is actually on the Electroblock down here. And even though it is in German, you can tend to be able to work out what they say. But basically, there's just a fuse here for everything 12 volt in the vehicle. You've got all of your fuses in here. Now the other thing that's in here is these two little drains. So this one at the front here is to do with your boiler. So if you wanted to drain the boiler out with all of its water onto the floor so that you're sort of winterizing the vehicle, you lift this little tab upright and all the water from the boiler should drain out onto the floor. The one behind it is another drain. So if you wanted to drain out all of your water, then you can just literally twist this like so. And all the water will drain out from underneath as well. So that's like your pipe drain, basically. So if you wanted to drain out the water from the tank, from the system, basically to winterize the vehicle, lift this one up and twist this one open, and that is your two drains. The wastewater drain is around here in the garage. So there's a switch just over there. In fact, I'll show you that now. So to drain out the wastewater, you've essentially just got this little switch in here. So if I press down on that, what it will do is it will open up the wastewater handle and it will drain it out onto the floor. So if you want to use your wastewater drain off point, that is the switch for that in there. Now you will also notice, I just thought I'd point this out, you will also notice that you've got these various kind of random looking bits around the vehicle. Now the majority of vans won't have this sort of stuff, but the reason that you've got it on here is because you've got the Audi central heating. So the reason you need them is because if you ever wanted to isolate the hot water from going to certain areas, you have got little valves sort of dotted around the vehicle in various places. To allow you to isolate certain areas of the van from the hot water. So just say, for example, if you didn't want the bedroom area to get hot, you can isolate it from certain areas. So that's why you've got these sort of really small hatches dotted around the place, just in case you ever wondered. So that is that. So your actual waste drain is that one just down there. You have got a yeah, basically that's just that switch in that cupboard there. Just that's what opens that up. So the next bits along are your electric hookup. So if you do have access to a hookup cable, it is really handy to have that plugged in. It means that your electric batteries will be being charged up. It also means you have access to using any of your mains powered appliances as well. This next one here is your freshwater filling point. All right, that's from in there. And then we've got your toilet cassette locker. So the actual toilet cassette, to use it is very, very simple. You basically lift up on this little orange handle here and then pull the entire thing towards you. You will then be able to take it all the way out. So what you need to know from there really is that you drain it out from this handle just here. So you unscrew this and drain it from there. When you're actually physically draining it out, you should be holding down this little orange button. And then once you've finished draining it out, you can fill this back up with a couple of caps full of the blue fluid, give it a little swoosh around, and then push it all the way back in like that. And that is it. So just inside the door, we've got your step switch. So if I just press the down button on the step switch, step comes out perfectly. And the last thing we need to show you is the gas locker. So you've got refillable bottles on here. These are Gaslow refillable bottles. You can see on the actual door itself, you've got the refill point just here. So if you are going to go abroad, you will need the adapters to go into this because at the moment, if I just show you, at the moment it is suited to the British LPG filling points. If you're not going to go abroad, just leave it as it is, but you know, every country has its own different adapter, so you will need to get those if you are going to go abroad. So the two bottles in here, you've got both exactly the same size. The way that I tend to do it is I will just basically turn the gas on, which is going anti-clockwise around to the left on the valve, by the way. So anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise. And then you've got a very small heater on here that I'll show you how to use inside for winter, but again, I'll show you that in a minute. The only thing I need to show you is if you find that you don't get any gas coming through to the vehicle, you've got a little green button just here, and if you press and hold on that for a couple of seconds, it will basically allow the gas to come back through. So what it is, it's like a crash sensor. So if the vehicle thinks that you've been in a crash, it should isolate the gas from going into the van. And so sometimes you'd have to go into that and press and hold on that for a few seconds if it thinks you've been in a crash but you haven't, which is quite often. So you might have to do that every now and again. Right, so in the actual van itself, just zoom out a little bit. So the layout in here, sorry, is really, really popular. So having the two forward-facing seats here with the proper seat belts, an adjustable table, and another single seat just here as well is a really, really popular way of laying these vans out now. Both front seats will swivel round, so if you want those seats swiveled completely around, they will turn all the way around, and they are obviously all matched in the same fabric as the rest of the vehicle. You've got various hatches in the floor throughout the van, and that's because you've got what's called a double skinned motorhome. So the idea behind a double skinned van is that you've got a void like a cavity wall in a house. You've got the same but on your floor. So the floor that we're standing on right here isn't the floor that goes directly out onto the floor outside. So you've got that void there, which means you get, well, two things. You get an unbelievable amount of storage running all the way through the vehicle, but it also means that you get a really good sort of insulation area between the lower floor and the floor that we're standing on now. So that's a really, really big plus. You only tend to get that sort of thing on these kind of higher end German vehicles, generally speaking. But there you go. That's a big plus side to them. So I think the first thing I'll show you is going to be the control panel. Now these Hymer control panels are unbelievably easy to use. Really reliable. I don't think I've had any problems with any of these yet. So when you come into the vehicle, you basically notice that you've got a big switch over here, which is actually the only button on the entire panel. If I press on that, it it just turns off this little light here, and it means that all the 12-volt power in the vehicle has now gone off. So all of our 12-volt lights have gone off. Any ignitions and things like that won't work anymore. So that is basically your main 12-volt isolator. So if I press on that again, that switch there, or the light, comes back on, and all of our lights inside the vehicle will now come back to life. So all you can do from there with this control panel is see what's going on. So if I scroll through on this little switch just here, the first thing it tells us is the battery at the back, which is basically the leisure battery. It's showing us the voltage for that. So we've got 12.5 volts in the leisure. Next one along is our fresh water level. So you've got 25% in the fresh tank. Next one is the wastewater level, that's empty. And the last one, the battery at the front, is the engine battery. So that's also 12.5 volts. So that is absolutely perfect. And that is literally all you can do with this control panel. You just scroll through to see all your levels and press it to turn it on and off. If you had the electric hookup plugged in, you'd have this little light here illuminated as well. And if there was a fault with the control panel, you'd have this little light here come on. Now below that is another little cupboard here, just to sort of tidy up other bits and pieces. Now, this one in the middle, I will just point out straight away, customer has asked for this. This is the Oyster satellite dish. Has asked for it to be removed. So it's in the garage still, so it can be put back on. It's only a few bolts, but that is what this here is for, just in case you wondered why I don't run through it. So at the top here, we've got your Audi central heating. So if I turn that on, Audi 3020, and I'll run you through that in just a minute. I'll just show you the other two bits in here as well. You've got your water pump switch just here. So when you want to use the pump and you want to draw some water through the tap, turn that switch on there. And you've got that little heater that I was telling you about for the gas regulator. So if it is the absolute bleak of winter and you're not going to be using the van for a little bit, or even if you are using it actually, you can put this little switch on just here, push it up, and what it'll do is it will just literally give the tiniest amount of warmth to the regulator and just allow it to not freeze up basically. And so that is the idea behind that. So the Audi heating, first thing I need to just quickly explain before I show you through that is that before you want to, if you want to heat the water up, for example, all right, the heating is kind of separate. You don't need to worry about this if you're just using the heating. But if you wanted to use the hot water, there is one little thing that you have to do first. So first things first, make sure that you've got a little bit of water in your fresh tank, which we do. So 25%. So you've got water in the fresh tank. Then turn your water pump on. Come over to the sink and just draw the water through on the cold side. And the hot side. So I can see straight away there, we've got good pressure coming through. There's no coughing and spluttering and going crazy. I can turn that off now. So all I'm looking for, when I use that hot water side of the tap there, all I'm looking for is to see that the water comes through without coughing and spluttering. That's it. All right. So now that I've seen that it's doing that and it's absolutely fine, I know for an absolute fact now that the boiler is full of water. If the boiler wasn't full of water, you would not get water coming through the tap, and especially not nice and clearly like that. You might get a little bit coming through, but it'll be coughing and spluttering and going crazy. So in that instance, all you need to do is leave the tap on and allow it to come through just like that. Just wait a few minutes or so for it to come through like it was just there. So as long as you've made sure that you've got water in the tank, yes, the water pump is turned on, and you've got water coming through the tap nice and clearly on both sides, you can go ahead and use the boiler however you want to. Okay. Another thing I will say, I personally like to turn the water pump switch off when I'm not using it. Now that's not something that you have to do, especially not in this case, because you've got a submersible pump, so it won't actually run at all until you open the tap. But saying that, it's just like good practice really. you know, if you had a leak somewhere and that pump was, you know, pumping the water out of it and you didn't realize, you're going to have wished that you had that pump switch turned off. So when you're not using the, I'm not saying that you have to turn it off every single moment that you're not using the tap. I'm not saying that. But if you're not going to use it for a little while, I would just switch it off, just purely out of good, you know, good habit to get into, really. So the last thing in here is the Audi central heating. So if I press the menu button here, essentially what you've got is a really nice and straightforward sort of layout of telling you what the boiler is doing. So in this particular case, the Audi central heating system is doing our hot water and the heating. You've also got the option of using it on gas or electric, or both at the same time. So before I show you actually how to use the boiler and how to get the water hot and use the heating and all that, I will just explain that like at the moment, because I haven't got the electric hookup plugged in, I can't use 1, 2 or 3 kilowatts of electric power because I haven't got any electric power plugged in. All right, so there's no point whatsoever in using this. Eventually it'll give you a fault code anyway because there's no power there, but unless you're hooked up on the mains, you can't use this one here. If you are hooked up on the mains, you can use that, but I will say that I never recommend using 3 kilowatts because I think off the top of my head, I think it ends up drawing about 12 amps of power, or around that sort of figure. So if you think that if you go to a campsite and you've been given a 13 amp post to plug into with your electric hookup cable, and you come in here and you use 3 kilowatt on here, and you're drawing 12 amps straight away, you've only got 1 amp to play with before that thing will trip outside. So basically, if you had that on 3 kilowatts, you're drawing 12 amps from there. If you come over to the fridge and switch that on mains, it's going to trip the power outside because you'll be over your limit. So I always recommend, if you are going to use it on the mains, to use it on 1 or 2 kilowatts, because 3 is just massively over the top, really. So that is that. So that's if you have the electric hookup plugged in and you want to use it on the mains, you can use this one just here. If you don't have that and you've got the gas on, you can press this button just here, and as long as that goes green like that, that means that the gas is now on for the boiler. Now what I'm going to do quickly is just turn this heating dial right down, because I don't actually want it on. Turn that all the way down. Okay, so now this screen here is basically now just telling us that the boiler will work on gas because we've turned it on. We've got the gas on in the locker, so we know that that's good to go. And now I can go ahead and tell the boiler what I actually want it to do, whether it's heating, hot water, or both at the same time. So at the top here, you probably noticed just there from what I was doing, you've got the option of the heating. So if I go through here, I can just basically select my temperature, just like a household thermostat. I go through, select my temperature, let's just say 20 degrees. And now that I've done that, the boiler will spring to life and it will start warming that water up and pumping it around to the radiators. Now because of that, because it's got the radiators and all that sort of thing, compared to the blown air heating, it does take a lot longer to actually warm up from scratch, from cold. It will take longer to warm this place up than a traditional blown air heating. But the reason that these ones are good is that if you imagine, just like a house, if you had a fan heater or something in your house and you put it on, yes, you would get hot really, really quickly. But when you turn that fan heater off, you're not really going to have any real warmth in there, so you'd have to have it on all the time. So the plus side to these is that because it actually heats up radiators all around the vehicle, and it's really kind of, the radiators are absolutely everywhere. You'd be amazed if you actually have a look one day and see if you can find out where all those radiators are. They are absolutely everywhere. So when you turn the heating off, it's still going to be a few hours at least before this fan starts to cool back down again. So that's the real plus side to this. But anyway, so if you want to use your hot water, your heating is the top one just here. Just basically go through and choose what temperature you want. The one below that is your hot water. So you can go 1 or 2, and that really is it. That is the options for the hot water. Now after about half an hour to an hour, you'll have hot water coming through the taps, as long as you've chosen that one there, and you've got one of these two energies selected at the bottom. Okay, so I'll turn that one off because I don't actually need the hot water on, and I actually also don't need the heating on either. So I'll just turn that back down again. And so when you're not using the boiler and you want it to all be turned off, as long as you've got no green lights on this front just here, you're absolutely fine, you're good to go. And if you press the menu button there, it will tell you what's going on inside the vehicle. So basically it's just telling you now that the temperature inside the van is 15.5 degrees. So basically, any time that you put this little thing here above 15.5 degrees, so even if I did 16 degrees there, and I press the heating, the gas button, that heating is now going to come on. Okay, if I go back down to 15.5, it'll turn off. All right, so easy as that. Right, so that is your Audi heating system. It's so unbelievably easy to use. Once you've got the hang of that, it is so straightforward, so easy. So you've got TV up here, 12 volt one plugged into the 12 volt socket up there. You've also got the drop down bed from up here, so that does just pull down. Now I will say that you do need to make sure that both of these front seats are completely flat laid down, and that your sun visors are completely up and out of the way as well. That is really important. I've heard sort of horror stories. I mean, I've been doing this a fairly long time now, but if again, it's not even something you want to joke about really, but if you put these beds down with, well, two things really. If you don't put these seats down, you won't be able to put it down at all. But if you don't put those sun visors up, I have heard horror stories of putting the beds down and cracking the windscreen, because these ones are, the sun visors are pushing against it with so much force. Because these beds are quite sturdy and quite heavy, it can crack your windscreen, and I promise you do not want to crack the windscreen in an A-class motorhome. You are probably looking at something like $3,000 or so for a new windscreen on this. Roughly, might even be more than that, I'm not sure. So please put these sun visors up before you put the bed down. That's really, really important. So if I just zoom out a little bit, that was open already. So I'll just show you as well, not that it's really something that you would need to know as like an owner of the vehicle, because it's not something that you can do yourself, but what you've got, just like a car, you've got a coolant reservoir for the heating system. So essentially, to stop it from freezing up in the winter, it's just coolant which has antifreeze in it. So the water that runs around to the radiators inside the van won't freeze up. But you do also have to know that it works, again, very, very similar to the coolant system on a car, where you just have to keep your eye on that level there. So you see it's just above the minimum at the moment, whilst it's not hot, so that is perfect. But every sort of 5 years or so, you are supposed to have that drained out and refilled with new stuff. But to be honest, I can see there that it's nice and clean. There's nothing nasty about it, and it's all good. So, but that is just something that you need to do every now and again. Just have that drained out and refilled. Anybody that's like Audi approved, or workshop approved, whatever, should be able to do that. So yeah, there you go. Below that, we've got, again, more pipes for your heating. That's what they are, just there. And we've also got your trip switches here for the mains. So if you wanted to double check that your mains was switched on, you've got the little trip switches just inside here for that. Another little thing that you may or may not know about already is this thing that looks like a big shoehorn. I suppose you could use it as a shoehorn if you wanted to, but the main reason for this, the main use for it, is actually because you've got one of these particular skylights up here. So the idea behind it is, because the skylight's fairly high up, you can get this little thing here. You've got a little hook on the end of it. Put that little hook over this little center part here, twist it, and then you can push this skylight up with this tool. So that is the actual reason for having this, just in case you didn't know. So put that back in there. I'll just shut this door. So the bathroom itself, if I can remember where the switch is, there you go. The bathroom itself is very, very straightforward. Now you've got a shower cubicle just here, with literally just a hot and cold water point from there, nice and straightforward. Customer did request a lock on the door just here, so now if I just jump in and show you that there. I use this brown one here because it sort of matches the colour there. That is nice and strong, so that won't open now. It's a little bit unusual that Hymer didn't fit one from standard, because you see there, you can't actually lock with this handle whatsoever from inside or out. So that is a bit of an unusual one. So we fitted that little lock there for them. So the toilet is normally the only part that I actually run through inside in the bathrooms, because the rest of it really is just hot and cold taps, super self-explanatory. So I don't feel like I need to run through it really. So to use these toilets, assuming that you've got a little bit of water in your fresh tank, because this is a fresh water flush, if I press on this little blue button here, well, assuming that I've got the power on for it, which I don't, water pump switch turned on. Now we've got the fresh water flush pumping around through there, and you've also got the fan option on that as well. I'll bring that up, and you can turn that on and off from that little switch just there. So the actual drain for the fluid inside the cassette there is the little grey one on the front just there. So that is what you open up to drain it into the cassette. There you go. So nice and easy on that one as well. So behind us here is the kitchen area. So you've got the 3-burner hob with ignition for each one of those. So if you wanted to light up any one of those, you just basically push in and round to the left and push down, and that will light up whichever one you want. There you go. So that is your 3-burner hob up there. You have got the glass screens for that as well, obviously. Now this little piece just here does sit inside here nicely as well. And you've got this little thing here, which is your drain opener for the sink. So I think the last appliance is actually going to be this fridge. So the fridge is, I think it's pretty much the biggest fridge you can get now on these Thetford ones. If I just turn it on there, should have a light. There you go. So basically what this fridge is going to do, so this is an automatic energy selecting fridge. You don't need to see me there. So AES fridge is essentially a fridge that you've got the option of the A function, which is that one just there. And what that does is it automatically chooses one of the 3 energies to cool the fridge down. So whether it's gas, 12 volt or mains. So why would you want to change between those 3? So the idea behind it is you shouldn't have the gas turned on when you're driving. Absolutely big no-no. So you shouldn't do that at all. So you can't use the gas whilst you drive. You obviously can't have an electric hookup cable plugged into the van whilst you're driving, for obvious reasons, so you can't use it on the mains. So whilst you're driving, you have to use the 12 volt, which is that little switch just there, which looks like a little battery. So it will give us a fault code when I turn that on, because there's no engine running, so it won't work. But that is the function there that you have to use whilst your engine's running, because that's the only way that will work. Other than that, you've got, if you've got the gas turned on, you can use it on the gas. Press that, press it again, and it will light up on the gas. And if you don't have the gas on, but you do have the electric hookup plugged in, you can go back to the electric hookup symbol, press on that one, press it again, and same again, it's giving us a fault code because the electric hookup isn't plugged in. Okay, so the gas and the electric are the two ways that this fridge will actually get cold. Okay, so the gas and the mains electric. The 12 volt, so this one just here, the little battery symbol, is only to hold the temperature inside the fridge whilst you drive. So you have to pre-cool the fridge before you leave, and then switch over to 12 volt just for when you're driving. That's the idea behind it. But as I say, you've got the option of you leaving it on A if you wanted to, and it will automatically select which energy it thinks you should be using. So it's chosen gas for us now because the electric hookup's not plugged in and the engine isn't running. So it's done that automatically and it is correct. So that is the idea behind that. That is the fridge, and it's all nice and straightforward, all working really, really well. So what I'll do now is I'll just turn it off by pressing and holding on the power switch. And that is it. So as I say, you have got various little hatches in the floor all the way around the vehicle. They are going to be sort of covering up various different things around, so you will find out certain things. A couple of them will probably cover up the tanks, so it'll be the fresh and the waste tanks. So have a little look around there. There will be lots of storage options down there as well, although, as you know, you've got an absolutely ginormous garage back there as well. But yeah, so I think I've covered everything. I don't think there's anything I've missed out. But if there is, and if there's anything you want us to go through again, just give me a shout. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks very much.